Greetings everyone, this is Lodrik and this is the game War in the Pacific Admirals Edition, and today we will check turn number 44 in our ongoing match against Dojo. So this means we check the combat of 3rd and 4th March 1942. The main focus is so far still the shipping of our 14th and 16th Army from the Philippines to Java, and then start the conquering of the island, taking Batavia and Surabaya. And at the same time, normally we're recovering the 2nd carrier fleet back to Singapore, and use the 1st carrier fleet near Port Moresby to have additional support strikes to make sure that we can take this strategic value port and base in the next coming turns. So this means more or less that my carriers are in maintenance and support role and not anything for striking. And means maybe there's not too much activity these days for big navy or air navy action. More or less only submarines striking to... my submarines at least try to sneak on Dojo's supply lines and bother him a little. But the night of the 3rd of March was more or less quiet. And looks like a 3rd. We have at least some submarine activity. So this is a Dutch submarine trying to attack our sub chaser, but he failed, and we can now strike back. And we have always this near misses. This normally will not have much really damage, but now we make a critical hit, and the submarine take water. This is normally important. All this near misses means more or less 0 damage, but if you have a really critical damage, only this normally counts at the end. But it's a submarine, so you can see that we make 6 hits. But I think at least one of this was a heavy strike, so this is why the submarine is now heavy damage. Our sub-chasers still have in these days this weak equipment. Even if we hit, we will not really make an instant kill. We only damage now the submarine. If we have later the better equipment and you have a critical hit, then normally the submarine is instantly dead or will die. It's a day. But at least that submarine have to return to Batavia and need to be fixed, that for sure. So even if it's not will sink immediately, it is out of action for at least 1 or 2 weeks. Yeah. Dojo's try to, he's scout. He has his navy search unit still, and he can see my ships are coming. But there is not more much left from this Dutch Air Force. Most of the Dutch fighters already gets killed long time ago by my zeros. I use a lot of zero sweeps to engage this fighter force and get rid of them. And many of Dojo's bombers also later on gets killed by unescorted navy strikes. He tried to attack my ships, but then my zeros can intercept them, and yeah. So most of his Dutch fighters and bomber forces are already destroyed. So there's not more much left for him to really threaten my invasion fleet. This is now the typical Chinese bombardment. But on a lower scale. I think like 50% of my bombers are now grounded. There is not really a good target for me to attack in north of China. Or ground bombardment in rough terrain or mountains have not really a good chance to be successful. It makes much more sense if you can attack ground units on an open field, so they have no cover. But I tried really many times and have simply the effect is so small, and I burn too many supplies with airstrikes. So I better keep my air force now mainly on, at least partly on training missions. I also try to create more skilled pilots to send them to the backup pool, so that I have in the future some reserve units if there is a day that maybe Dojo will strike back and the losses will maybe high for the Japanese Air Force. So I prepare for this. Bad days coming. Better now. So there are still a lot of scout planes from Dojo everywhere. They're hard to catch, because I don't have my carriers nearby. If you can use your carriers to support your invasion fleets directly, then you also maybe get rid of these scout planes. But I use my carriers mainly for really active strike duties, not for support so much. This is a simply game style question. If you want to use carriers to support your invasion fleet and cover them, or what I do is more or less keep them together and always strike out and try to mess up the allied supply lines. The daily air raid on Port Moresby from Bambul with just so success, but at least this will keep his units under pressure. Medan is more or less the northern Palembang, so he has also some oil field and refineries. So Medan is also normally important, not so big like Palembang, but I think similar to Miri, also 200 or 300 oil and refinery. So it is important to take it and not to try to destroy it completely. But how you take the base is really often related to luck. Okay, here we have, this comes from Batavia, so this is Dojo, his Dutch twin engine bombers from Batavia. You can see they're coming. You can also see that normally this red line will give you, it let you know at what position you detected the enemy air raid. So because all of our bases, they don't have radar so far. So for the Japanese, it is really much more difficult to bring up interceptors in time in the air. So we have two airborne, but 5 on standby. So in this 5 on standby, they must need time to take off. So this is why only 2 planes can intercept. And then he run away. So our 5 other airplanes was not able to intercept because they had 2 less reaction time. But later, if the Japanese in April or March and April, you get radar stations, and it's really important for the Japanese to get this radar equipment in their important bases early on. Yeah, and this is now the B-26. And here we have now more airplanes already in the air, and they're all red line is long. I'm not sure how this is now possible. This means more or less we know, or we saw they taking off. Make normally no sense because the Japanese don't have radar, so sometimes it's a little strange why the game show you this long line. But I think this is maybe it's a bug, or I misunderstand something here. But we can at least try to intercept this B-26, because the B-26 Marauders are really, if they have good pilots and a little luck and escort, they are really dangerous, simply because they can load 6 bombs each airplane. This is a lot of payload, but without escort like this now, against Zeros, they don't have really much of a chance. So at least one B-26 gets through. But is his attack one, or angel of attack must be now very shitty, and you can see that our flak can destroy him. So he was maybe already damaged. He come low at 3,000 feet, means the Japanese light flak can go up to 4,000 feet. So there is a reason why this AP and all of the fleet long range flak can more or less attack this B-26 before he can make his strike. And then we was lucky that our heavy flak looks like hit him first. But it can also be that our light flak gets a kill, because you don't know what is killing him. It's only killed by flak. And if you come at 3,000 feet, you know that all flak of at least this ship will attack this airplane. Because again, light flak will only protect the own ship, but heavy flak will protect the fleet. So all of the heavy flak of this fleet here will attack this incoming aircraft, but only the light flak of this specific ship can attack this airstrike. This is a big difference. And for the Japanese, there is only light flak and heavy flak. The Allies, they also have this medium flak stuff. But the medium flak will also only protect their own ship. So it's similar to light flak, but with much more range. And these are these scout bombers. So they are really only good to making pictures and nothing more. And they are good to get killed by Japanese ace pilots. So our Zeros in Sumatra and Java have today a good day, because they can score a lot of hits. And Dojo have every day less of his Dutch air fleet or air force left. This was I think a battleship fleet I had originally together with my second carrier fleet, but Dojo never come out and engage me. This was normally something like an escort unit, and so this battleship fleet had still shells, and before I bring back my battleship fleet with full shell stock, I simply bombard Port Blair, only because it's a secondary target for me. Because they're running a little low on fuel, so I won't bring them back to Singapore, but I also don't want only let them run around and find nothing. So at least I make this shell bombardment and give a little pressure on this installation. Maybe can kill some airplanes on the ground or make some damage to the base and burn supplies from Dojo. Because this is also a little risky for him to reinforce, so you can see airbase supply hits 5 and port supply, so we do, and we also make normal damage. So to fix this damage and this direct hits on the supply base will normally lower the supplies in the base and force Dojo to bring additional cargo ships in this base. And this will open the opportunity for me to intercept these cargo ships and so on and so on. Okay, again a drop bombardment from the Japanese cruiser formations. And you can see here how many submarines. And they're all detected by my unit, so I know all of this position of Dojo submarines. So this is important. I mean, really, the Japanese are not good in killing submarines, but at least you can know where they are, and this simply will normally already be enough to have not the surprise attacks. Often it's already 80%, I would say. If you know already there are submarines, it will reduce the risk of sub attacks very highly. Again, we can see we don't really hit the active soldiers, only the support units, but at least something. Okay, now we pick up this empty bases one by one. Each base is maybe 2 or 4 points, so here the same. No allied forces. Here also in Java I use some forward units to scout and take the bases what is possible. And this is it was an attempt. You can see that there's normally not too much Dutch attack value left, but I mean normally we say 60 to 120, and then you can see that we lost like 50% of our attack value, but the Dutch forces lost like a quarter. I think 60-70%. So the Dutch forces have very low morale, but and we are able to destroy the fort level, so we reduce the fort level because we still make a 1-to-1, but it's still just so acceptable outcome. And because this is a 2-day turn setup, this will means now, because we make a successful 1-to-1 attack, but we have here just barely get a victory more or less, but we suffer much higher losses. I mean, not really destroyed, but disabled. I would normally rather say, okay, stop the attack, don't try it again, but because it's a 2-day turn, I cannot do this, and so the commander will say, okay, I attack again. But normally if I see this kind of values, I would say, better stop it and wait for reinforcements. I mean, the positive effect is that we destroy the 1 fort level, at least that. And here is this ongoing bombardment battle in Port Moresby. I make air attack, I make shore bombardment, and Dojo make ground bombardment with his units, and well, you can see the gap is increasing maybe slowly, so his force is getting weaker and weaker, but still not enough. And it's now not more far, maybe in 2 turns I can bring reinforcements, so the day after or the next turn I maybe be able to land additional forces. So around, I think, 15th March we can finally start the battle of Port Moresby and see how long Dojo's forces can hold the base. I hope to sweep and drive them out immediately. Yeah. So my focus is to take Surabaya first, like I said before. Surabaya is for me much more important than Batavia, simply because Surabaya have a shipyard. And the shipyard is, I would say, always important. Okay. So here's a small Dutch submarine and a small Japanese cargo ship, and yeah. Looks like the captain don't want to attack. Cargo ship have no value. Maybe the submarine is low on torpedoes or whatever. The captain make a decision, say, I see the enemy ship but I don't attack. Maybe the Dutch forces realize that the Japanese are simply too strong and the other outclass them completely. And here now this American cowboy submarines, so far I think they completely fail. I mean, the Americans, what you expect. And again, the Japanese destroyers can now fight here in shallow water in our own port and have normally a good chance to at least damage the submarines. You can still see that we use this very shitty first generation depth charters, so they cannot go deep, but this doesn't matter because it's shallow water. But they also have only a very small damage radius. So if they explode underwater, the radius or the area of damage is small, and also the impact force is not very high. So that altogether makes this kind of sub-chaser equipment very useless normally. But for shallow water it is acceptable, and sometimes you simply must throw enough stuff in the water and then you will also have some result. And in this case we're making 8 hits, but you can see we make 8 small hits. But we cannot, this is not enough to create enough floating damage to force the submarine to surface. And that is normally what always or mostly happened. You can sometimes have the critical hit and the submarine is dead immediately, but often the submarine take water, and because the submarine take water, that means the flotation damage is high enough, I think over 40 or something like this, then the submarine must surface. And the moment the submarine must surface, no, the ship engaged the submarine will normally open fire, and then you have a surface engagement. And that is also to 90% a dead submarine. Because a submarine is a submarine and not a surface engagement ship. So we can say we crippled 1 Dutch submarine and we damaged American submarine. And I think last time we also damaged 1 or even 2 American submarines. So far not only fail the American submarines totally, they also get their ass beaten again and again. First, at the beginning of the war I killed many of Dojo's submarines in Manila Bay. And now our destroyers at least keeps them on a distance. And here is now other, I don't know if it's another one or the same Dutch, because I can really not remember this kind of codes. But at least this is a Dutch submarine. And here again, 9 hits, but no heavy damage. So, and we're running out of ammunition. This is, yeah, this happens often. This kind of small sub-chasers, they don't have much ammunition stock. But I think also the Japanese destroyers is often running out of ammunition. So, but in April I get an upgrade, and then we get better equipment, and then this will not happen more so often. The only problem is in maybe not in April, but in September or October somewhere. I think every 6 months, the American Mark 14 torpedoes getting more and more reliable. I think they're starting with like 10% hit chance with explosion, and I don't know, every 3 or every 6 months they're getting 5% more. So it will be more and more likely that the Americans one day will score a hit. But I hope these days are still far in the future. And maybe simply the Japanese destroyer and anti-submarine units can create so much damage to Dojo's submarine force that even if we get better torpedoes, that they don't have more this high numbers in the Americans they had in reality. Okay, this is now our submarine, and you can see, I mean, an elite Japanese submarine can fail, but maybe this Japanese captain simply was pity with this cargo ship. I would say this must be because it cannot be that a Japanese submarine really failed to hit something. So he was only pity. And this is now maybe American, or I really don't know. Maybe it's American destroyer. Can be a Dutch, but I'm not. I think it's more American. Looks too small for a British destroyer. And this is now Dojo try to hit our submarine, but we are in deep water. But he failed completely. So yeah, not easy. But also, of course, our submarine are so skillful. I mean, and here is see it, but cannot find the submarine. So a lot of submarine activity. Dutch submarines around Java, and not very successful. A lot of American submarines around Rabaul, and not very successful. I mean, one of the better good days for the Japanese anti-submarine forces. But nothing, of course, critically. Because 1, 2, or even 3 submarines, it will not really bother the American and Allies too much. Maybe this early in the war it is a lot. But if I remember right, I think latest in 43, the Allies they can produce 1 submarine per week at least. Maybe even more. So this is really the point why the Japanese, I don't know if they really can survive up to 45 so easily, because the amount of units the Allies can produce in some starting in summer 43 is so high that you even better score the hit in 43. You can see again there's no enemy flag more, so Port Moresby is completely dry, or at least so low on supplies that they cannot afford more to use any flag. And that is also the reason why I come low now. You can normally even fly lower, but I come with 4,000 feet. To increase the chance to make a hit. But even if I fly so low, you can see that the damage I can create is simply very, very small. Because the fort level and the terrain is still in favor for Dojo. And this is the airstrike. Normally was focused on, I think, an army unit here in this hex. But last day this forces jump out of the hex. So this is why my airstrike is now attacking here this base. Normally I would not attack any base. Base or a real city have often too much flak. And we saw the flag, but we're coming with 8,000, and this is Chinese troops. They don't have much heavy flag, so it is okay. But we also don't know nearly no damage or no damage at all. So I have to adjust this again. Means that Dojo's army escaped my attack. I was one turn too slow to catch him and get rid of all of his forces. But it's okay. He only delay his defeat. There is no question that my victory will be on hand. And here we at least score some hits without losses. So the Chinese anti-aircraft stuff is not really very strong. At least for the heavy anti-aircraft equipment. So if you keep flying at 7,000 or higher, yeah, the flak losses will be very light. The most dangerous part is normally if the Allied can bring some fighter forces to China and operate them. Because like we all know, Japanese bombers are cheap and fast, but they burn so easy. So afternoon. Yeah, we report all the submarines. And yeah, still Allied scout planes everywhere. This will only stop after I took Surabaya and Batavia. Then, and Palembang, of course. Okay, next airstrike, but heavy cloudy, so but I mean I come at 4,000, maybe I could drop up to 2,000 maybe, because 1,000 is a low level attack, then you have only half the payload, and I think it will not change more much. Oh yeah, 4,000 also. I don't know if the impact will change too much if you make ground attack. Here they come again, and I don't expect much difference. Again, unescorted bombers, and we drive them off. So we kill one and the rest is trying to escape. I mean, this makes sense. The only problem is we still don't get rid completely of this Dutch bomber force. Maybe they come another day. And this is now Dojo's big chance to make a score. Because I have, this is exactly, my fighters from Singapore cannot protect this ship. And my fighters from Osthaven are out of range. So this is more or less the black spot of my air cover area. So it is perfectly, but somehow, don't ask me, they're Americans. They don't know what they can do. They can only do nothing with that. Maybe they simply see the Japanese flag and then they are so scared that they lost any confidence in their skills and drop the bombs far too early or too late. I mean, they are right. They, like I said, they cannot fight with Japan. Japan is simply far too superb for them. And this is maybe now the last substation for today. Yeah. This time we cannot locate the position and nothing happened. Maybe next time. Okay, the next landing force. So this is now more or less the last base here in Borneo. Maybe next turn we officially can finish the conqueror or the operation to conquer Borneo. So one more land attack. Yeah, this is now the attack here in Medan, and because we burned out last time our unit, and this attack make no sense, but there is no way to stop this now. And you can see that I only have 35 left, and I dropped to 3. You can also see that Dojo's forces from 113 dropped to 21, so he still dropped very, but they're simply, yeah, my units are a little burnt out. But luckily you can see none of the Japanese units are really gets destroyed, they are only disabled, so I mean the same for the Dutch, but you can still get them back online if you let them rest and have supplies in the hex. We have here no supplies, but I will bring additional forces here and then maybe strike another day. Similar to Port Moresby. Naja, one unit disabled, nothing really important. And I think before he had like 175, now he's down to 166 because of my airstrikes. So Dojo is losing attack value day by day. And the Japanese are more or less, I think they don't really lose much. Because what we gets disabled, we can also reactivate at the end of the turn. So this number is more stable. But Dojo cannot reactivate anything what is disabled because he have no supplies left. Good. Means, yeah, this is the end of the day. And we arrive at March 5th, 1942. Okay. So the intelligence report tell us Allied lost 6 airplanes in the air, 1 destroyed on the ground, 1 killed by flak, and 3 operational losses. But Japan lost 4 operational losses. Okay. So this is not a really active air battle. But most important is that Dojo lost 4 of his B-26 Marauders. So, and this is normally the best anti-shipping bomber I think the Allies have in this period of time. I mean, this bomber is normally better than any Betty. There's nothing of the Japanese army have this kind of strike power. So they are really good. Even at this stage of the war or later in they're always good. They only gets better, pitifully. But This is, I mean, at the end, this means it is good to get rid of this many of his first-class Navy strike bombers without losing anything on our own side. We only have here some operational losses, so it's okay. So 11 to 4, oh, it's okay, why not? And we have 2 wounded pilots, so maybe after some time they can recover and enter service again. And ship sunk this turn. Okay. Officially, we sunk 1 Dutch submarine. Maybe. I hear no sinking sound. I saw nothing really go down, but at least it must be heavily damaged and out of action for 1 or 2 weeks. And by a collision near Auckland. By a collision. This was 3rd of March. Okay. I hear no sinking sound, so I'm not so 100% sure. But this looks like a very heavy pot. 22 victory points. And 13,000 tons. So if these ships go down, this is a blow for Dojo, because this is can carry nearly 4,500 troops plus additional cargo. This is really a really good liner, and will slow down all moving of army units for Dojo in the Pacific. So maybe, why not? And a collision is more or less a failure of the captains. This can happen. I think I had this also 1 or twice in this game. Can it have nothing to do with can be happen part of a battle. It's more likely in a battle, but I think it's also sometimes simply happen by accident. If you have a fleet operator and they're running around, there's always a small chance that something is hitting. I had 2 destroyers colliding, and then both of my destroyers are, I think, damaged for 1 or 2 weeks in the shipyard. It's not often that they really sink by a collision, but they can get damaged, and of course, depending where you are, it's maybe, if you're unlucky and it's open sea, then it's a pity. If it's happened close to a base, then you fix the damage, and then after 1 or 2 weeks it's all fine again. You can see the situation that Dojo running here west, and I keep here on the street because I want I try maybe to walk here in this hex and try to intercept him here and force him to a battle here, and then hopefully can destroy him. At the same time, I have here only a block force, and these are 2,200 attack value. This is only a brigade, nothing too crazy. But here, this is my main army, 7,500. So if we bring this here, and we have here nearly 8,000 attack value, and this is my this unit here in this hex normally block Dojo because this is mountain terrain or heavy rough terrain. So I may be not able to fight Dojo's big army, but Dojo's big army will also not be able normally to defeat my army here. So this unit is more or less a block for his unit. At the same time, I create here a new strike force. With this strike force, I will try to rush for these 3 bases and then return, so that I can maybe take this 3-4 bases here and then engage Dojo's big army here. This is at least a plan for the future. Here we took the first base, and we now normally we hunt down what is here. I mean, not much left, but these units are already all beaten up. So if Dojo have nothing here in the back, in the rear area, I will normally force him to battle, take the next base, force him to battle, take the next base, and then slowly walk here up and take all the bases. And finish the conquer of the Mongolian area. At the same time, you can see that I'm moving here my pieces together to meet up in Canton. And then I create my Southern Strike Army. And then I will focus here to take Wushao first. And then we will see how this engagement is planned out. The 25th Army is still on the march. So we will enter next turn the next hex. So next turn we are arriving in this hex. And next turn we maybe arrive at the first British base. And then we will know if Dojo, where Dojo try to hold the line. Because this is here is a river crossing, and here is also a river crossing. So, but I'm not sure if Dojo will try to fight in this area or if we fall back and only one fight in Rangoon. This is up to Dojo. The only point is, if you take Pegu base, I think this is already enough to stop the Burma road supply for Dojo. So if this base fall, but latest if Rangoon fall, the allied players don't get this 500 additional supplies each day. 500 or 1000? I don't know exactly how much. But it is additional free supplies for the Chinese army. So that is the reason why it makes sense normally to take Pegu and Rangoon. Also because if the allies or the Japanese can take these two bases, it's normally impossible. Everything here is then starving out. Here's no land connection. The amount of supply will flow from this base over to this road, and then here up is, I think, simply not enough to really maintenance here a big army. Then all these forces are more or less dependent on the supply fly from the supplies running from China back to this North Burma area. And you can see this small road in this mountain area. This is also not really possible. So if the Japanese can take these 2-3 bases here in the source, all forces here in British North Burma are slowly dying out. The only option is, of course, that the Allies try to airlift supplies in. It's not a really good efficient way to do this, but it's of course possible. I mean, the Allies have, latest in late summer 42, more and more transport airplanes, so they can airlift supplies here to maintenance the army here in North Borneo, even without support. But it's a logistic nightmare, I would say. Yeah, you can see here many ships. Many ships trying to hunt here submarines, because not like in the THG game, you not only must take Singapore, you also must make sure that this area is more or less a dead zone for enemy submarines. You must close this street. I mean, it's not really completely possible to close this street for enemy submarines. The British, they can always bring submarines here and try to enter here, but you must at least try to make it very dangerous for Allied submarines to come close to Singapore. So this is why you first must have enough Navy scouts to find enemy submarines. You need submarine hunter groups, and of course you also need to install here mines. So I have here 270 mines. Normally you need here 300 mines and 2 ACMs for mine mine layer tenders, but they're on the way, I think. And that is normally then 300 mines is a very high chance that a submarine get a mine hit if it enters Singapore port. This is basic. I would simply say this is basic stuff. If you don't know this, if you don't follow these rules, then of course the submarine will sooner or later sneak in and make a hit, like in the THG game. But it needs time. You cannot do this in one turn or 2-3 turns. It needs preparation. Yeah, and you can see here the amount of ships are running from Singapore, bringing additional forces to Osthaven. We still unloading some supplies here. And the last amount of units from the division here. So the 55th division is, but it's not more much on the ship. So we unloading these units, and then next turn we can start our walker on Palmbang. And I have here now then the whole 15th army. They're all in Osthaven. Oh no, some part are still in Singapore. Okay. So there's one new part of I have still to carry from Singapore to Osthaven, then we can start. I simply won't bring all this. I have time. I make sure that Dojo cannot bring anything out of Palmbang. So, and though the allied player cannot stop the production of crude oil, so maybe he can stop the production of fuel and supplies. He can do this. I'm not sure if he really do this. But at least the crude oil will always get drilled out. So it's of course good to have Palmbang fast, because firstly he is an air base and you can see he can make air attacks. But I always try to organize everything most perfect successfully in a manner of time. It's not like British. I think the British, Montgomery, his style was more or less what is all possible bring to on together, and he always wait far too long, and then he attack with overwhelming forces. With the Japanese, you can not really do this. If you wait too long, if you try to organize too much, then you're running out of time. So this is the Germans are super aggressive. This will maybe not work with the Japanese, because the Japanese don't have any advantage in technology. So you need you have experience, but you need the numbers. But you don't must go the British way and try to do everything perfectly. So there is yeah, you must find the way between this. And yeah, here's the 14th army, and I think the 14th army is more or less most is on the way or already arrived in Sumatra. Yeah, they coming here, coming there. No, yeah, still some stuff is on the way. Yeah. So I try to bring as many forces here together, but I think this was a division I also bought out of Japan, so this was not originally a part of this army, but now I bought them out and I transport them and I add them to the 14th army to give additional punching power. So, yeah. But there are still forces in the Philippines also. So we still have here the 16th army. The 16th army is boarding and on the way, you can see. So some parts of 16th army already here in the source of Balikpapan. And here, so these are the different task forces. So one turn or two turns more, and we have you can see here 2 transport units. Here is one more, so 3. This is running out, so 2 more incoming transport ships, invasion fleets are coming, and then they're returning to Manila and try to pick up more and pick up more, pick up more, pick up more, so that I have at least all of 14th and 16th army here. And all of 15th army taking for Palmbang, and all of 25th army going for Rangoon. This is my focus. But because I use this heavy focused army equipment for Rangoon, one army for Palmbang, and 2 armies for Java, means more or less I really have very small forces left to finish this Philippine stuff. And I only have Navy Guard units normally try to get rid of this Australian and American forces. And Navy Guard units simply are normally, yeah, they're lacking the ability to really fight an open field battle. Their really main purpose is to taking undefended or lightly defended bases, but not really a land force you can use too much. But anyway, I think this is enough for today. You can see that I already load this units here in Tulagi. Then I will load also my Navy Guard units here in Shortlands. Then we will meet here somewhere in the center. This is maybe next turn. And next turn we can make the landing in Port Moresby. And next turn, so in 6 days more or less, maybe in 8 days, then we can have the first real assault on Port Moresby, and maybe we can take the base immediately, and all these Australian forces are shattered and broken, and everything is fine. Or we will see if maybe somehow Dojo can stand against the tide and hold a little longer. But if Dojo is not bringing something additional here to this base now, it's a question of time. Japan will be successful and win the war in this part of the map for sure. Okay, see you all, take care, bye.